I remember sitting at my desk halfway through another giant YouTube tutorial. It was supposed to teach me how to make a full game. Hours in, I hit a problem that I didn't understand. I paused, rewound, tried again, but eventually I restarted from the very beginning. And that became my entire loop. Restart, get lost, restart again. After months of this, I realized I hadn't actually made a single thing, just follow along like a zombie. That moment nearly convinced me that I'd never be able to finish a game. You can probably also relate to this, the feeling that you start a new project, it feels exciting, but after a few hours of following along like a tutorial or making a project that is heavily relied on external resources, you just give up completely and you restart again. You get excited, you fail, and you restart. And that's what I call the restart spiral. That's where you constantly quit and restart new projects instead of ever finishing one. So let me tell you this, I know how you're feeling. I know that when you restart you feel excited and you feel like things are easy and you feel like you're learning new things because you're watching these tutorials or guides or maybe even using AI to actually make the project. But in reality, you're instead stuck in a loop. You're stuck in this restart spiral. And the cause of this is quite simple. It's an over-reliance on external resources. And that can be one of three things. It can be, which is the most likely one, it can be tutorials, it can be AI, or it can be full guides like text or articles. So just to put the cause of the restart spiral very simply, it's each time you try to learn or implement something new, you're reliant on tutorials, AI, or guides. Or just another word is external resources. You aren't able to do these things yourself and you are reliant on these things. You wouldn't be able to do them if I turn your Wi-Fi off. So you just do these things over and over again. I was in the same position as you. But the worst part is that you feel like you know more than you actually do. Because you think you're learning from these external resources, but in reality, you aren't. So you can probably see that this is an issue. It's an issue for you and you are not alone. I was in the same position. Thousands of other beginner game developers are also in your same position. We'll walk through step by step how to get out of this restart spiral later in the video. But to actually understand what we need to do to fix this, we need to understand that you think that you can do more than you actually can. You think that you learned from these tutorials, you think that you learn every time you restart a project after you failed, but that's not actually true. The only thing that these tutorials, guides, and AI does is make you believe that you can do more than you actually can. Thus, you make bigger projects that you can't even finish, and in turn of that, what do you think is going to happen? Well, you're going to watch more tutorials, you're going to ask AI more, or you're going to watch more guides. It's a constant loop. You think you can do more than you can, so you do bigger things, but then you can't do those things, so it's a loop basically. And that's the lie you've been fed. The main cause of the restart spiral that I see is over-reliance on tutorials. And let me tell you, this is an analogy that I use a lot on this channel. You can probably imagine when you learn to swim. How did you learn to swim? Was it by swimming or was it to watch YouTube videos about swimming? Well, obviously it was by swimming. You didn't watch maybe any videos on swimming at all. Because as everything in life, we learn by doing the thing itself. We don't learn by being held in a hand through everything and just taking the easy path. We can do the hard path or we can do the harder path. Tutorials, that's the harder path. Because in the end, you'll realize that there aren't two paths. It's only one path. And the only path to learn is by building things. It's by doing experiments, making prototypes, making small games. That's how we learn game development. That's how painters learn to paint. They learn by painting. Mathematicians, they learn maths by solving math problems. Music artists, they improve making music by making music. Video editors, they improve video editing by making videos. Game developers, guess what? They improve by making games. They don't improve by watching tutorials. It's not like game development is an exception for the entire world. This applies to everything in life. Swimming, you swim. To ride your bike, you have to ride your bike. You can't ride your bike without riding a bike. You can learn game development by not developing games. It's literally so simple. You could watch a step-by-step recipe on how to ride your bike, sure, but it's not going to apply practically to your situation. You're not going to learn to ride a bike by just reading a guide. You're not going to learn to paint by just reading a painting guide, basically. So I'm just going to say it straight out. Tutorials, they're not effective for learning. to learn something, we actually need to do that thing itself. So as I said, to learn game development, guess what? We need to make games. Just as simple as that. And we can differentiate the two types of learning into two different categories. The one which includes tutorials, AI, guides, all these things that don't make us actively use our brain, use the knowledge that we have. These are called passive learning. Whilst the active things like building things, taking notes even, like taking notes when you're researching on the internet, taking notes, doing like quizzes, everything that requires like some cognition, something of your brain, that's what we call active learning. So you have passive learning, which is tutorials, and we have active learning, which is building and using our brain basically. That's the definition I use a lot. Active is basically using our brain. So there's a very interesting thing about these tutorials and passive learning in general. You probably remember like a little before in this video where I talked about that you think you can do more things than you actually can. So now that you know what passive and active learning is, let me tell you this. Very interesting. It has been researched in multiple studies, not just one, that passive learning, it gives you a false sense of confidence, gives you a false sense of progress, false sense of learning. You think that you learn more than you actually do. You get more confident because of it. Whilst active learning is the opposite. You think that you learn less than you actually do. But what's actually the result? Well, the result is that you learn more about active learning than you do on passive learning. So you can probably see that it's reversed. You think you learn more with passive learning, but in reality, it's less effective than active learning. So that's very interesting. And we can apply that to game development so much because it's also a mix of like a creative and logical field where we both have to solve problems and we need to be creative. So especially for game development, we need to practice active learning. This isn't like learning Spanish where passive learning might be more effective. I don't know. I'm not that into like language learning research. I'm more into like game development research. But I can imagine for like learning languages and so on and so on, I can imagine that passive learning might not be like that bad basically, like when you read grammar, because these are like rules that you just need to remember. You just need to remember words and remember rules. Whilst in game development, you can't just remember everything. You need to like practice your brain to solve problems effectively, and you can't remember how to solve every single problem. That doesn't exist because every single problem is completely unique. Not even to mention that it's creative too. So you need to practice like being creative as well as solving these problems. Both of these things aren't things you can just remember. These are things that you need to use your brain for. So passive learning is basically useless in this field. I don't recommend that you spend more than maybe 10 or 5% of your time on passive learning. The more advanced you are, the less you can do passive learning because then you like know how to do things. You can experiment with your own. But in the start, you can probably start with like 15% passive learning and spend 85% of your time active learning. Then you can gradually decrease that and spend more time building, experimenting, prototyping, and less time watching tutorials, concept overviews, like getting new ideas, learning new things, basically. Now I'm going to give you the step-by-step guide on how to actually fix this and how to get out of the restart spiral and learn the effective way that has been researched for game development. And it's not what you think. I'm not going to tell you to just build. Bear with me, I'm going to tell you everything. So yeah, we need to build games. I'm not going to lie, obviously, that's the first thing I want to say. But, there's a but, we don't just make games. For you, that is a beginner, you don't know how to do things yet, I can't just tell you to make a game and just end the video. I can't do that. What I'm going to tell you is to do one small experiment, the smallest thing you can possibly do. We need to start small when you're making games, when you're getting out of this restart spiral. And I'm going to say it one more time, tutorials, it gives you a false sense of confidence. So your ego is going to be a problem here. You aren't going to want to start small, and that's a problem. You need to start small. You need to start much smaller than what you imagine right now. Right now you probably imagine that you're going to make like a small game or multiplayer MMO like Skyrim basically. No, you can't do that. You basically just follow tutorials for your entire game journey. You don't know how to do anything. You haven't made anything yourself. The only thing you've made so far is made by someone on YouTube, a guide online, or AI. You haven't made anything. So you need to start completely from scratch. Make a cube, move it in one direction, move move the cube in one direction. Do like the simplest possible thing you can do. Don't overcomplicate it. Just drop your ego. Seriously, you just have to do it. Start with the smallest, easiest thing that you can possibly finish in 2 hours. And at the very beginning here, I don't recommend that you use AI. At this point, like this first experiment, I'd not recommend that you use any external resources. Just do the things that you remember. Maybe it's just one line of code. Do that one line of code. Try to spend a little under 2 hours on this. If it's more simple, then obviously it's not that much you can do, but experiment in the engine. Try to use like 2 hours with no internet, just experimenting. And this isn't to like build something or learn like extremely much. This is basically just to start with something small, and then we can gradually build from here. Because the only way to escape the restart spiral is by building momentum. It's by building small wins, and finishing one experiment on your own, that's a small win. And this experiment should just be one mechanic, whatever it might be that you can remember, something that you can do quite easily, but you also maybe have to think. Just 2 hours, no internet, basically one mechanic. Simple as that. You should write this down, by the way, or come back to this video. But the next thing that you're going to do after this experiment is that you're going to build on this experiment. Try to make it into a prototype slowly. So, for example, your first experiment, this is like a bad example, but whatever. Your first experiment might be move this cube in one direction. Just automatically, no input, no whatsoever, just very simple. Just change the position of a cube slowly. Let's say that was your experiment. What you're going to do now is that you've unlocked your Google, so like you can check that. You can use Google now, but we're not going to use it yet. The first thing you're going to do is find like the next natural step of your experiment. So let's say the experiment was, for example, move the cube in one direction. Then the next natural step would be move the cube in one direction when you press a key. So when you press the W key, for example, move the cube upwards, and then it stops when you release the key. That's basically one line of code, and it's a very like natural addition to the experiment. So do that. First, try to spend 15 to 30 minutes, even if you're clueless. Just try to figure it out. Try to guess. Just write something in the editor and hope that autocorrect will help you. So for example, you might say input, and then you think you're on the right path because input makes sense when you're getting input. So you write input, and then you write a dot, and then you see on the autocorrect it says get key, and you kind of try that. Just experiment. If you get it working, that's awesome. That's the best possible situation, and chances are since it's going to be very simple, you can probably find it out. But if you don't, totally fine. Just go on Google, search for the specific implementations. How to do something when I press a key. Simple as that. That should be a Google search. Your Google search should be as specific as humanly possible. Should not be like general, like how to make a cube moving simulator. That shouldn't be a Google search. That's way too generic, way too large. What you need to search for is going to be this specific thing. How to do something when I press a button. We're going to restrict our information as much as possible. So when we actually do use these external resources like AI, Google, tutorials, preferably Google, we're going to like extract as little information as humanly possible. Like basically just the thing that we need, nothing more or nothing less. Because you can't learn everything, you can't remember everything. If you search for like how to make Skyrim in Unity and you actually did that, then you wouldn't remember anything. But if you actually spend like 30 minutes on trying to get a key input, your brain would remember it so much. It would like, the next time you're going to do it, you would do it instantly. You would be able to get the key input like immediately because you struggle with it for 30 minutes. So it's going to stick to your brain super much. And because you're not going to remember everything I said in this video, I just want to give you one thing that you can write down, you can try to remember, whatever. That's that you shouldn't use external resources as shortcuts. Instead, you should only use them when you need it, and you should use them as teaching tools, not shortcuts. So try to remember that. Also, if you want to learn more stuff just like this, I've made a program which is called Smart Indie. Inside of Smart Indie, you get a 60-day blueprint on how to release your very first game. Even if you are a complete beginner, you have no idea how to do anything right now, totally fine. It breaks down everything from what game development is, how to install the game engine, like the core engine concept, like what the scene game object is, how to make your first experiment, how to make your first prototype, how to plan your first game, how to make your first game. Everything is included inside of Smart Indie, as well as a lot of bonuses. Like for example, you get a Trello template so you can plan your game more effectively, like have a very nice overview of everything you plan. It has a 60-day visual blueprint as well as a planning blueprint. So since planning is very essential, planning is going to be extremely easy for you because you know everything you need to do step by step on how to plan a game, how to make your own ideas. Smart Indie isn't just how to build this one specific game. Smart Indie is a framework for you to become a game developer on your own journey. It's not going to tell you step by step how to make a game, so you make my game, you just follow along. That's not what Smart Indie is. Smart Indie is a guide on your own game development journey, from a complete beginner to releasing your first game in 60 days. So the value is insane inside of Smart Indie, and if you join today, you'll also get my personal help, and I'll guide you through the process of releasing your first game in only 60 days. So click the first link in the description to join Smart Indie today, and I'll see you there.